Here we go with that. And then also turning on live captioning for you if that is something that you are in need of. And now here we go. Julia, can you hit next slide? Arena Academy, the reason that many of you are here, we consider Academy to be the first step in our progressive talent pipeline. So at Arena Academy, we equip the next generation of campaign staff with the skills, knowledge, and tools to build winning campaigns and movements. And we're super excited to be returning to in-person. Our last Academy was in Phoenix. We transitioned online during the pandemic, and this return to Phoenix will be our first in-person Academy since 2019. Julia, next slide, if you will. Thanks. So Arena Careers, the next step in our pipeline is to help connect you with opportunities on campaigns and in progressive organizations. So we connect our grads with career opportunities on campaigns and in progressive organizations. We do this through one-on-one coaching, also through our Bespoke Arena Careers platform, which we consider the LinkedIn for politics. So we've helped to place grads in jobs on progressive campaigns and progressive organizations. So after attending Academy, you will gain access to a variety of services and supports through our talent program, including resume workshops, again, networking and one-on-one coaching, and also Arena recommendations when applying for jobs. All right, next slide, please, Julia. Arena Toolbox, we support campaign staffers with a collection of free toolkits, tutorials, and templates for building winning campaigns. We'll make sure to drop this in the chats for you as well. Our toolbox has over 60 tools and it's always growing. These are free tools, guides, videos, podcasts, so have an array of different options for different styles of learning. And the goal is to help practitioners learn how to build winning campaigns. So this might be anything from writing your campaign plan, developing your message, paid media tools. Those are just some of our most popular tools that you'll find there. I highly recommend checking that out as well. Next slide. And Arena candidates. So we identify critical races with compelling candidates and provide the staff support they need to win. We most recently did this in 2021 in Virginia through an Arena Virginia Staff Fellowship. We placed 7 Arena Academy grads on key Virginia House delegate races and fully funded their salaries and healthcare. And importantly, the candidates we supported are 70% BIPOC, 57% women, and the staff fellows were 70% women, 70% BIPOC. So really wanting to help represent the diversity of folks in these communities and working on these races. I'll kick it back over to you, Julia.
Amazing, thanks, Jessica. Today we are here to talk about Arena Academy Phoenix. We did our last in-person academy in the before times in December of 2019 in Phoenix. And so we thought it would only be fitting to return in person and also be in Phoenix. And as you all know here, Arizona is an incredibly important state. And so we are always happy to be returning to Arizona and to be partnering with our fabulous partner for this training, Instituto, which is an organization based in Arizona working on building power, both politically and elsewise. So excited to be talking about Phoenix. One thing I just wanted to take a quick temperature check before I dive into this is We also recently announced that we are going to host another training in person. That one is going to be in Austin in June. And so I'm curious to hear from you all. We weren't planning to talk about Austin tonight, but go ahead and drop a yeehaw into the chat if you would like to hear about Austin. We will do this at the end, so we're going to focus on Phoenix, but if anyone would like to hear about Austin, go ahead and drop a yeehaw into the chat. All right. Okay. Some people just want to say yeehaw. I think that's the feel. Great. All right. Arena Academy Phoenix is going to be from May 4th through the 8th. That is a Wednesday through a Sunday. It is 5 days, and we fully expect you to be there for all 5 days of this training. The curriculum builds upon itself, and it's important to be able to help your team in the Arena Cup, which we'll talk about in just a bit. It's going to be hosted at the Phoenix Convention Center in downtown Phoenix. We are looking for current and aspiring campaign staff who are looking to level up their skills or who are looking to get into their first campaign. We expect there to be about 200 attendees, and the deadline to apply is this Monday at midnight. So what is Arena Academy Phoenix? What's it going to look like? We are going to have folks participate in 5 days of experiential hands-on learning. There's 7 tracks to choose from. We have campaign management, communications, data, digital, finance, organizing, and organizing directors. This is a hands-on experience, as I mentioned, and it culminates in this group project called the Arena Cup, where you are assigned a real district with real data in a very competitive race. These are not easy races to win. We need to be thinking creatively about how to win in some of these tough districts. The candidate, however, is usually fictional, so you'll get to play around with a fun story and background of a fabulous progressive fictional candidate running in the area, and you are going to be tasked along with your team of coming up with a winning campaign plan. You'll have an expert coach who is there to facilitate and to help you through that process. But it is by far one of the highlights of the entire experience that folks talk about for years afterwards. I know we have a couple of graduates in the room, and I'm excited for you all to share. This training is for anyone who wants to learn how to work on a democratic campaign. And so we look at all levels of experience. Folks who are brand new to the space, maybe you volunteered on a campaign before and now you're curious about what it would mean to be a full-time paid staffer. Maybe you've worked for a campaign before and you're interested in expanding your community of practice or learning a new set of skills. I know, for example, on a lot of campaigns, it can feel sort of isolating. You have your coworkers who you are in touch with, and then once the campaign closes, there's no sort of way to level up and get the next job and figure out what skills do you need in order to be considered for another position. So with Arena Academy, we also provide space for folks who have had previous experience to level up their skills and to network and meet other people who are doing similar work. Like I said, we expect 200 plus participants. The cost is $300 for registration. And I want to asterisk that by saying that I'm going to talk about scholarships in just a minute here. So on the base cost is $300. So we're going back in person, and there's still a global pandemic going on, and COVID-19 is real, and it's still in a lot of our communities. And so what are we going to do? How are we going to make sure that everyone is safe and healthy and feels comfortable coming to the training in Phoenix, both locally and of course, you know, we have folks who are coming from around the country. So first thing that we want to just level set with is we're going to go back to one of our norms, which many of you have heard if you've attended one of our trainings. It's respect, empower, include. So we bring this up because we've all dealt with these past two and a half now, 2 years, just 2 years. And we've all come from this from different places and perspective. It's been hard on all of us. And so we are doing our best to make sure that we are being safe And we want to encourage everyone who enters this space to also bring that same attitude of generosity, of respect, of inclusion. And so this will be our thread throughout this process and throughout the training, is making sure that we are being there for one another as a community that has made the decision to be back in person and to do so safely. So what does that actually mean? It means that we are requiring full vaccination from all attendees. Full vaccination at this point in time includes a booster shot, and whatever vaccine you received, whether it's an mRNA vaccine, the Pfizer or Moderna, or the Johnson & Johnson. So we will be asking you for proof of vaccination, as well as a booster. I will add that if you look at our website, which we'll come to in a second, you'll see any reasons, legitimate reasons for exceptions, which we will consider. And that should be completed within at least 2 weeks of the event. Jessica, if you wouldn't mind dropping this link into the chat, this is our website. Our policy will be updated regularly depending on what we're hearing. But at this point in time, we are requiring that masks be worn during the training, indoors. When we're outside, which we encourage you to eat outside, we encourage you to socialize outside. There's going to be some amazing spaces. Those of you in Arizona, it's going to be very hot, but hopefully it will be pleasant enough for us to be safe and socialize outdoors. We also ask that anybody who has been exposed or anyone who has had COVID 10 days prior to the event not attend. We will be doing a daily screening questionnaire. This is a very basic questionnaire about before you enter into the space. And we will also have rapid tests available for anybody who is not feeling well on site. Our full policy is on our website. As I mentioned, we'll be continuing to monitor the situation to see how things are improving, how things are going. And we'll be doing our best to create a space again, that is healthy and that is also, where we can get to see one another, because it's been so long. And I can't wait to give folks hugs and to say hello as safely as possible. So just the caveat that ARENA may update these procedures at any time in response to changes in health and legal environments. So, We've been through this for 2 years. Things are changing rapidly. We've got different things happening in all parts of the country, all parts of the world. So we'll be monitoring the situation very closely. All right, so on to travel and scholarships. So for travel, the basic part is that if you are accepted to ARENA Academy and if you are able to pay, you as a participant are responsible for paying travel and accommodations in the location. We don't have a hotel block, but we have many recommendations, and there are so many hotels in downtown Phoenix. It's basically any rewards program you might want is represented within a 3-block walking radius of the event. Lunches will be provided every day, and we will also provide snacks and coffee. So participants are on their own for breakfast and for dinners, though we are always happy to consider special accommodations. So that brings me to scholarships. I want to put this very bold and very clear. 2/3 of our participants receive some form of scholarship. So if you just heard what I said and thought, goodness gracious, that's not for me, I can't do that, I would still encourage you to apply, because the majority of people who come to Academy have received some form of scholarship. Those scholarships take on a couple of different forms when we are in person. At the most basic level, it is covering the cost of registration. So all you need to pay for is transportation and accommodations if you're traveling to the venue. We have another tier of scholarships that is covering both registration and travel. So we will pay for your airfare up to $500 to the event. And then we have our full scholarship, where we pay for registration, airfare, or gas reimbursement, as well as accommodations at a hotel in downtown Phoenix. So those are 3 different levels of scholarships. We do not want money to be a barrier or a burden to anyone attending this training. It is very much our goal and desire to make this as accessible as possible. For those of you who do pay the full price of registration, we're grateful for you. You help to fund our scholarship program. And so just want to encourage everyone to apply for a scholarship if finances are a burden or a barrier. How do we determine those scholarships? They're based upon an availability of funds, but you'll see on the application, we are going to ask for your job status, household responsibilities, things like childcare, things like elder care, and things like student debts, things like that. And then we will also ask for your income bracket. And based on those pieces of information, we will make the best determination that we can and offer you scholarship. All right. So I know I'm seeing like a lot of questions coming in the chat. We're excited to answer all of your questions with Q&A at the end. Or Jessica, should I pause now to take questions, or do you want to dive into the app? What's the vibe?
Yeah, let's pause and see if there are any burning questions that haven't already answered. If you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat or maybe use the raise hand function. We'll just pause for a minute here and see if there's anything coming up.
Feel free to come off mute or drop your question into the chat.
The recording will be sent out.
Hello, hey, it's Tanya. Hi, y'all.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, hi, it's Tanya from Instituto. There's a question sent to me today through email. They wanted to know if they have like a whole, their organization all apply. Is there any like group discount or anything, or should they go ahead and apply for the scholarships?
Amazing. We love groups. Danya, the best person to put them in contact with is Jessica. In this case, we'll put together an MOU for the group and figure out what the best rate is for folks. But still, if you're applying from a group, we still need individual applications from folks. We'll just need to figure out a group rate.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear a group coming.
So bring a friend. That's essentially what we're saying. Bring a friend.
And then do you need to be able to drive? I think that really depends on your accommodation. As Julia mentioned, there are plenty of hotels downtown near the venue. So our hope is that you'll be able to stay within walking distance. But, you know, Julia, correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes folks have stayed with, you know, maybe a friend who lives in Phoenix, and that might require travel. It might require carpooling. If you live within the state and need to drive in. So I think that'll really depend on your lodging accommodations. But in terms of like the training itself and day to day, a car shouldn't be necessary.
Yeah, and I'll just add on there, I think I mentioned this, but for those of you who are in Arizona, or maybe you're in New Mexico and you feel like a road trip, we do reimburse for within, again, that $500 range for scholarships. We do reimburse for gas and parking during the days of the event. So that is another option. And also I wanna, if anyone from the Phoenix area wants to share this, I know that there's a public transit that's very cool in downtown Phoenix. So I think you can get to many places very easily from the downtown area.
Yeah, that train is really great. But it's horrible if you're driving and trying to make it turn on Central. But sorry, while I have people. just a shout out for this program. I did the February thing by way of anchor from Justin, him, his. And I'm really excited to see this thing in Phoenix. I think the state's at a crossroads. We can go progressive like we've been doing the past decade, or we could not go that way. And a limited, a qualified open, like if anybody needs housing, I'll probably be moving to a new apartment right before this. Somebody can stay with me. You might have to deal with my crazy lifestyle, but outside of that, yeah, I'm very excited to see Arena come to Phoenix.
Thank you, Justin. Super appreciate the endorsement. And we'll add a couple of things on that. One, clearly, Arizona is a very important state. Also, we will put folks in touch if you are comfortable sharing a room or having a roommate. You can find each other via our Slack once admitted to the program. So you'll be able to find a roommate if you should choose to stay with somebody in Phoenix. The other thing that I will say related to what Justin said was that not only will you have 5 days of training at this event, there will also be extracurricular events, so to speak, where we will have a jobs fair, for example, with some of the local campaigns that are hiring and organizations that are hiring. We very much want you to be in touch with those organizations. And so we'll do things like jobs fairs. We'll have many networking opportunities and after dark activities going on. I know Instituto is planning to have to host a happy hour at First Fridays downtown, which is at one of the museums. And so there will be a plethora of fun and wonderful things to do in Phoenix. And I'm really excited to hang out with you all. Not only is the training intense and incredible, but the community and connecting with people in person just can't be beat. So I'm excited to welcome you all into that setting as well, and to take advantage of our time together to connect with campaigns, to connect with local organizations, and to figure out next steps on your political career as well.
Cool. So gonna dive back in, but please keep the questions coming, and we're gonna pause again and answer more questions. But Julia, I think we're good to keep it moving into the application. Awesome, thank you. So first things first about the application, we recommend completing it in one sitting. We'll go into a checklist. But it's best to really just be able to plug in all of your information. This application shouldn't take longer than 15 to maybe 30 minutes tops. So recommend completing it in one sitting. You can close it and return to it later via the same device or browser. You just have to save. That link. And there's the caveat of not being able to return to it if you started the app in incognito or private mode, and it only lasts up to 15 days. So because of all those asterisks, we really just highly recommend completing everything in one go. Next slide. And that checklist. So for this application, we'll ask you to prepare in advance either a short video, 3 minutes or less, or a written response, 500 words or less. It's really your choice. Just use the medium in which you feel most comfortable sharing about yourself and your story. We don't have a preference of one over the other, but preparing one of these, explaining why you want to attend Arena Academy. And then we'll ask you to submit a copy of your current resume. We'll love you if you submit that in PDF form. So please do submit if you have access to that. If you happen to not have a formal resume, that's okay. We'll just ask you to tell us about your past experience in your own words. And then everything else in this application you should be able to complete with without any prior preparation. Next slide. So as I mentioned, this is a part of attending Academy in this new reality of returning to in-person. We'll ask you to confirm that you understand our COVID policy and just letting us know where you fall within these options. And note that if you're not fully vaccinated or boosted and don't plan to get vaccinated or boosted, it will kick you to the end of the applications as that falls outside of our policy for this training. Next slide. Next, you'll be asked to enter some biographical information. So we are always striving to admit a class which is diverse across age, diversity, economic status, ethnicity. So we ask for demographic information to help us create as balanced as a cohort as we can across race, gender, location, really wanting our cohorts to be intersectional. Next slide. And which track do you want to apply for? So you'll be asked to submit a first and second choice track, which is something that folks can often get a little hung up on. So we do offer a breakdown of the different tracks to kind of help you get a sense of what you'll be learning, and maybe starting to think about, if you're completely new to this space, where your skills might translate or where you might want to enter. So applying for 2 tracks doesn't increase your chance of acceptance, nor does submitting the same choice twice. There is a space for you to let us know if you only want your first choice track, if you don't want to be considered for a second choice, where you can let us know that you only want to be considered for finance, or you only want to be considered for communications, what it might be. But giving us a second choice track, so we have a sense of where else we might place you if your skills don't fit, or if one track might be full, but there's space for you in another. But what's most important to note here is that you will not be able to switch tracks once you're assigned a track. We do at times make exceptions to this rule. And this would be if, maybe you were accepted into the digital track and you recently got hired on a campaign as a finance associate. That'd be a very good case for you to switch to the finance track. So if you aren't selected for your first choice track, you can let us know. But we do work to really balance each of our tracks and fill them completely. So there's often a wait list if you're looking to switch tracks. But if someone drops out at the last minute, we might be able to accept you into your track of choice. So just be sure to check out those comprehensive track descriptions to help figure out where you think you would like to land in the training. And you can find that on our FAQ page. All right, next slide. Great. And then we'll ask if you are currently working on a campaign, some of your your political experience, some of your post-academy goals. I think what's most important to note here is that none of these are trick questions. There's no right or wrong. So don't feel shy about selecting I'm brand new to politics if that is the case. And to give you a peek behind the curtain of some of these questions, like we mentioned, we have a careers team which works with our grads post-training to help place them in jobs and help you in your career journey. And our careers team works really diligently to understand where our participants are in their career journeys. So this information is just the beginning of that. So try to really reflect on these questions and answer as honestly as possible, but know that there's no right or wrong. Next slide. Great. And then this is where you'll fill in information about scholarship, which Julia shared some about. Also important to know here, we don't factor in your need for a scholarship into the decision-making process. So just like the questions about post-academy goals and how much political experience you have, no trick questions, answer as honestly as possible. And if you are able to pay the full registration fee, know that that helps us in our goal of making Academy as accessible as possible, and that 100% of these funds that are raised from registration fees go into being able to offer scholarships. Next slide. Awesome, the prompt response. So the next part of the application is where you'll enter your prompt response and resume. This is the information that you have prepared in advance. It's really your space to introduce yourself and tell us more about your commitment to working on a campaign. Next slide, please. So there are going to be two questions that you answer here. The first is required, the second is optional. We'll ask you what has inspired you to get involved in campaigns and attend Arena Academy. You have 500 words there to tell us your story. And there's a second optional question. What's something we should know about you that we can't learn from your resume? Max 250 words. So again, this is your chance to introduce yourself, tell us about your commitment to working on a campaign. Remember that we've got your resume. So this is really your opportunity to elaborate on your experiences, your stories, why this work is important to you, why you want to get involved in a race, to really express who you are and why you want to do this work. So we, in this next section, are going to go into what makes a good prompt response. Next slide. So it tells us why this work is important to you. You have those 500 words of that prompt response. We ask that you use this space to thoroughly respond to the prompt response. We really want you to demonstrate that you've put thought into your answers and that you've reflected on your experience and where you would like to go next. So you certainly don't have to use all 500 words. It's less about the word count and more about fully telling us what you are bringing. So as long as you don't just include like 2 sentences, you're going to be good here. Next slide, please. It demonstrates the skills that you uniquely bring. So telling us what have you learned on campaigns thus far, or if you're coming from a different industry, what have you learned in your industry thus far? What is the knowledge you are bringing into this space? Based on that knowledge, based on the knowledge that you have, what would you like to build on? That sort of thing. Next slide, please. And then it tells us what you plan to do with this training. So again, it's thinking about those post-academy goals that you'll answer earlier in the application. You don't have to know exactly what it is. You don't have to, have the exact race that you want to work on coming out of Academy. But we do want you to demonstrate a clear intention that that you want to use this training in the progressive space, whether that is within a progressive campaign or a nonprofit. So telling us what skills you hope to gain, and how you intend to use those skills to affect the progressive landscape that'll really help your application stand out to us. I think we have some prompt responses, but maybe we'll breeze through those next couple slides so that we can give you some other important information and also talk about Texas. So next slide. Go through the next couple of slides. Awesome, thanks, Julia. So when will you hear from us? So we have the applications open right now. Oh, you can skip to the next slide. Application is open right now, and the deadline is March 21st. That is this coming Monday. Really important to note that that's at 11:59 Eastern. So the application will close on Eastern time. And you'll hear from us that following week, the following Monday, March 28th. And you will be notified of your application status, whether you are accepted, waitlisted, or not admitted into the training. You will hear from us regardless of the response on March 28th. And then from this point forward, we keep an internal calendar of rolling deadlines. So we'll share out a registration deadline for everyone who's accepted into the training. And after everyone who's been initially accepted has either accepted or declined their space, that's when we'll open up the wait list and start moving folks off of the wait list into the training. So if you're admitted to the wait list, please do fill out the form so that we know that you're still interested. If you get the waitlist email and don't fill out the form, we won't be considering you as we move more folks into the training. So important to respond to all of those notifications. And I think I'll break that down a little bit more in the next slide. Yeah, how does the waitlist work? So the time frame for Phoenix, you'll hear from us sometime between April 1st to April 18th. That's the window in which we'll be moving folks off the waitlist. And the waitlist isn't ranked. Folks often ask if there's anything they can do to increase their chances of being admitted from the waitlist. Again, responding to all of our outreach from our team, letting us know that you're still interested in the waitlist form. There'll be a place for you to let us know if you've had any recent job updates or pertinent information that you need to tell us. So responding to that outreach, filling out that form, and then, hanging tight, and we'll make a final decision by April 18th. And we'll let you know regardless of if we're able to admit you or not. And folks often ask how many folks are accepted from the waitlist. It really varies. And it's based off of the initial registration of those who are admitted. So we admit our full cohorts in that first round of registration. And then once we see how much space we have left, of folks who have registered, we then begin to move folks off the wait list. So I don't have a definitive number there, but just being sure to complete all communications so that we can know that you want to be considered for the wait list as we start reviewing those candidates. And lastly, what if you don't get accepted to Academy? There's a couple of reasons you might not be accepted into the training, and that's not sharing details on how you'd like to use the training. We we just covered some of these guidelines for submitting a strong prompt response. As long as you follow those guidelines, you're going to be golden. But you know, if you don't tell us how you want to use this training, you don't have a clear sense of this space, and it seems just exploratory, that might be a reason that you're not accepted. Indicating that you don't intend to work on campaigns or in the progressive advocacy or nonprofit space. If you're like, oh, I'm just kind of curious, and you know, taking Academy is more of an exploration, that might be a reason that we pass on your acceptance into this training. And then again, if you're highly experienced and you don't indicate how this training will make a difference in your career trajectory, one of the things we're doing at Arena is welcoming folks into the space. So, you know, if you have 10 years of campaign work on your resume, and you know, you indicate that you like know people in the space, you have connections, you have relationships, we might, you know, pass on your application or admit you to the wait list in favor of someone who is newer to this space, who doesn't have as much experience, so that they can get those learnings. Because we want to give folks an opportunity where they otherwise might not receive it. And with all of that said, we want you to apply. So you'll receive a recording of this training, of this info session, but also if you've started an application, you should have at some point received a text message from Arena asking you if you have any questions. So getting started on your application, coming back to this info session, responding to that text with any questions you might have, and getting that application in by March 21st is the next step. But from here, we will pause and go into questions. And I'm going to catch up on the chat, but feel free to drop questions in the chat or raise hand function.
I also realized earlier I didn't do my due diligence of going through the tracks very fully. So happy to just do that very quickly, and also answer any questions you all might have about the tracks. Our campaign manager track and our organizing director track are the two tracks that require previous experience. So we generally look for applications of people who have done campaign work before. In the case of campaign management, oftentimes there are folks with transferable skills from other areas. However, generally we admit folks who have had prior experience. Why is that? So for campaign managers, we're teaching you the basic skill set that you would need to run a campaign. So it's everything from paid media to fundraising, to writing a plan, to understanding a pathway to victory and how to put that together. For communications, we are teaching you the basics of how to write the communications plan, how to think about crafting the story and the message of your campaign, and how to work with the press. So all great skills to have if you're going to work in communications on a campaign. Our data track is very fun. You will learn hard skills around what is needed to work in data on a campaign. So you'll actually learn how to code. You will have the opportunity to learn how to use SQL. And that does not require any previous experience. People have been able to enter into the data track with no previous data experience before. For digital, you will be learning, you'll be doing the deep dive on digital paid media, particularly. So running ads on campaigns. What does that take? We're thinking about both the creative side as well as on the metrics, measuring how do you know if you've been successful? How do you know if your message is getting across? We'll also be talking about email and reporting on digital. For the finance track, which is an amazing track and probably one of the spaces where we get the most requests for resumes. So if you really want a job on a campaign, highly suggest you go into finance. Not only is it fun, but it is a hot job market out there. Fundraising on campaigns, that track you will learn the basics of how to write a fundraising plan. You will be able to learn how to do call time, how to manage call time, how to manage fundraising data. It's an excellent track. And then we have organizers. Organizers will learn the basics of how to organize. It's one of my favorite tracks. Jessica leads it. You'll learn personal story, the hard ask. You will learn how to do capacity building, how to work with volunteers. And then finally, we have organizing directors. Again, this requires previous campaign experience. You'll learn how to write an organizing plan. You will learn how to manage staff, and you will learn how to structure and run an organizing campaign. So I just wanted to cover that quickly. Apologies. And if there's any other questions, happy to answer those. Katie.
Thank you. Jessica mentioned that if we didn't have a current resume that we could speak to our experience. I don't have a resume formatted in the way that it would need to be formatted to reflect the most relevant experience. Could you speak a little to, if I was to go that option, what all you would want included? I have a pretty up-to-date LinkedIn profile that has a lot of information, but could you give just a little bit more about that path, and also will it impact my opportunity getting accepted?
Definitely, and that's a great question, Katie, thanks. So we definitely accept resumes that are not perfectly formatted. We recognize that people are coming in, in different steps in the career process. So if you don't have something prepared, we say, tell us about your experience in your own words. I've had people, kind of just write out narrative, like, this is the experience I've had. I've worked here, and they just submit that in like a Word or PDF, and it's not formatted like a traditional resume would be. What's helpful to what you just mentioned is that we've updated our applications to include LinkedIn forms. So it's optional if you want to submit a LinkedIn, but in the case that you submit something that isn't a formatted resume, submitting your LinkedIn profile will also help us and give us more context where we might fill in the blanks. But we'll say that it does not reflect poorly on you if you do not submit a traditionally formatted resume.
Okay, I was an HR director for a long time in the corporate world, so I know what a good resume looks like, and maybe I'm a little bit too high of standards. So it's not that I don't have one; it's just that it's not updated with the last couple of years because I haven't needed to.
Yeah, no worries. And the way we think about it is we do resume workshops after Academy. So if we see something that we think might need to be updated, that's something we can address post training. So feel free to submit what you've got.
All right, wonderful. I'm in Tucson, so it seems silly not to at least put my application out there.
Yes, please do. We're excited, and I'm excited to meet folks from across the state. So
wonderful. Okay, thank you too.
You too. Well, and I see Julia answered some questions in the chat as well. We're looking to start a fellowship program structure. We plan to work with candidates in Texas and hopefully Pennsylvania as well. Reading out loud for folks who might be watching this after the fact. But feel free to raise your hand or come up mute if you have another question. Julia, should we quickly go into Texas at this point?
Yeah, for folks who want to stay on, feel free to join us. If you have the information that you need, feel free to jump off. This is just a nice little bonus episode at the end of the regular programming. But before we get there, Abby, I saw you had a question.
Thanks so much. I was wondering, in the written statement or the video statement, I took some notes on what to include in that, but should we be speaking specifically to the track or tracks that we put in the application? For me, it would be a career transition. So the specific track is something that is a little bit more exploratory, but my motivation for participating in general is I'm more committed than that, but the sort of speaking to the exact track is sort of new territory for me.
Yeah. So definitely want to hear about your motivation, especially since you're transitioning. Want to hear why making this transition is important for you in this moment. And then because you're moving from another industry, maybe telling us a bit about those skills that you have right now and that you're bringing from the work that you're currently doing. And then making notes of the 2 tracks that you're most interested in and where you see your skills fitting into those. And like definitely okay if you don't know exactly how that is, and if something doesn't translate 1-to-1, just want to see how you're thinking about making that move.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Abby.
All right, I'm going to go through this very quickly. We will likely host another info session about Texas specifically, but wanted to give you all a taste. So from June 8th through the 12th, we will be hosting another in-person academy in Austin, Texas. So very excited about this. We have some wonderful Austin or Texas-based partners. Again, this is the same audience for current and aspiring campaign staffers. We expect about 200 people, and the deadline to apply is April 17th. The thing that I want to highlight here, so it's the same cost, $300, and we expect 200 people. There is another event that is added to this academy. So not only will you be attending the academy, which is 3 intensive days of training, but instead of an arena cup, so instead of that group activity, we will have this event called a summit. Arena got its start by hosting summits in 2016. In the aftermath of that election, our founders got together, said, what the heck are we gonna do? And basically called together friends, activists, advocates, community leaders, people from all across the country, and they all convened in Nashville, Tennessee, and came together to talk about where the hell are we going and what are we going to do next. So that was the very first Arena Summit. That was the inception of Arena as an organization. And throughout 2017, we hosted multiple different Arena Summits around the country with this idea of convening activists and advocates, everyone from your volunteer to Jason Kander, who is the Secretary of State of Missouri, to Pete Buttigieg, who at that time was still just good old mayor of South Bend, Indiana. So there was a range of folks who came to these from those summits. We had candidates who announced, like Lauren Underwood. She came to a summit and met her campaign manager. We had Lena Hidalgo, the hometown hero in Houston, who is now the county judge, also attended the summits. They were a place to come to revitalize, to energize, to talk about the work that we have going forward. And the summit, in this case in Texas, is going to be very firmly rooted within Texas and the Texas context of what is the work that we need to do in Texas in order to fight back against the agenda that is being pushed there by Republicans across the state. So instead of the Arena Cup, we'll host the summit. The summit is from the 11th of June until the 12th, so it's 2 days. also in Austin. It is open not just to campaign staff, but also to activists, community leaders, elected, change makers, volunteers, your cousin, your friend, so forth. This is an open event, so you do not need to apply for the summit. You can simply go online, and if you want to, you could register today and come and play with us in Austin. So we expect about 400 people, that will include our Academy attendees, and then we'll add another 200 folks to that group who will come in from all different walks. The deadline to register, as I mentioned, it's not an application process for the summit, it's just a registration process, is June 1st. However, if our spots fill up before then, we will close the registration link. So this is a very fun event. If you all are thinking, if you've been to an Arena Academy before and you want to come and meet people in a different context, you can just come to the summit. However, if you're based in Texas, we highly encourage you to apply to the Arena Academy in June in Texas. It's going to be a great time. And so to the point of, if you are here and hearing about all of these things and how do you choose which one to go to, the first thing that I would say is, if you are in Phoenix and those May dates work for you, or if you are anywhere in Arizona and those May dates work for you, please apply to Arizona. One, it helps our carbon footprint, and two, it is just, it's your opportunity to connect with people locally. So we would highly encourage you to apply to Phoenix if that is where you are, if you're in Arizona. If for some reason the Arizona dates don't work for you and you are interested in Texas, you are based in Texas, please apply to the Texas Academy. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you, for any reason, would like to come to Phoenix and then would like to come to the summit for 2 days in Texas, you're welcome to do that as well. So those are just a few options and a couple of basics about this program. The cost to attend just the summit portion is $150. We have scholarships and we have a reduced rate for that. So you can check out the registration link. And that, my friends, is all I have. I'm happy to stick on to answer any questions. I also want to acknowledge that the wonderful Jessica, it is 9:06 where she is, and that is like 24 minutes before my normal bedtime. So yeah, happy to stick on to answer anyone's questions about Austin, but wanted to give you a brief taste, a brief overview of what is happening then and how it's a bit different from Phoenix. You won't be doing the cup, but we will be doing a convening of change makers from around the country and state. And with that, I'm going to stop share, bring it back.
Thank you, lady.
We can stop recording as well.
Yeah. Wonderful job. I really appreciate it.